Hello everyone. So in this video we're going to cover how do we model organic models. For example, as you can see in this building, um, again we have this building and many buildings we see that are organically shaped and we don't know how to exactly model those in 3ds Max. The same thing goes for interior, it's either like ceilings, partitions, furniture. Many of these are organic shapes that we don't know how to model in 3ds Max. Now, of course, there are many techniques to use in order to model those, and we've covered some of them in previous videos or in the previous semester as well. So I'll start with a basic introduction of those methods, or let's go over some of the methods that we've covered previously, and then we're going to introduce a few new things that might help you as well when you try to model those kind of organic shapes. So first of all, if you remember, we've talked about sweep. Now, sweep modifier basically takes a line and then it will extrude this line along a path that we've already created. So let's say I'll go to line and then I'll go to the top view where I'm going to draw a kind of curved path. So this is the path that I want to follow. And then I'm going to go to the, let's say, this view, which is the left view. Okay, and this is my line. I just closed the grid. And I'm going to create another shape. So let's say something like this. Okay, so this is another shape that I've created. Now I can select this path, this line, and I can go to modify and add a sweep modifier. The sweep modifier, it has two kind of section types. It has the built-in section, which already has some of the ready shapes, and then there is the use custom section where you can pick your shape, whatever line you have, and it will extrude it along this path. So this is the result that we have. And of course, you have the sweep modifier parameters where you can mirror this shape. You can use offset to offset it from the original path. You can change the angle. So you can play around with the angle, with the alignment. Do you want it to be at the top of the line, at the bottom of the line, at the center, and so on. So you have these kinds of options to play around with to get this kind of, let's say, organic shape. Of course, you can add more modifiers to edit this. So we've already introduced this in the previous video about modifier, where we can always add an edit poly, and then you can go to vertex and you can select any one of the vertices that you have, and then you can open soft selection, increase the fall off to cover a bigger area. Okay, and then you can move this vertex around. And it's going to give you this kind of fluid movement that will continue with the, or it will move the vertices that you already have near it. So for example, again, I can select this vertex and then I can move it towards outside, towards inside. You can play around with it depending on the final shape or the final outcome that you want to reach. Okay, so this is one of the methods, which is the sweep modifier method. The other method also is, let me just delete this and go back to our line. The other method is when you want to extrude 3 or 4 sections along this line. So I'm going to copy this shape. Let's go again to the left view. And I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to create, let's say, 2 copies. For this copy, I'm going to take this line and I'm going to move it up. And then maybe I'll move this as well to the side, and maybe I'll move this also towards outside. Okay, so this is the kind of shape that I have. And then for this one, I'm going to, let's say I'll move this up, I'll move this one a little bit to the side, and then maybe I'll move this here. So I have 3 different shapes or 3 different sections that I want to extrude along this line. So I'm going to select this path and then I'll go to create, and then from here I'll go to geometry and then compound objects. And from here we have the loft option. So loft option is where you select a path. I already have the path. And then you specify which shape you want to extrude along this path. And then you can control as well the percentage if you want to add more shapes. So I'll start by getting the first shape, which basically will give us the sweep effect that we already had. And then I will change the path percentage. So let's say I will go to 50%, which is here in the middle, if you can see the X, the yellow X that we have here. And I'm going to get the second shape. So it will start from the first shape, and then it will continue to the second shape. And then I'll go to the end of the path, which is 100%, and I will get the third shape. And it will give me this kind of extrusion. Okay, so it will start from the first shape to the second one to the third one, and you can at any time go to any one of these shapes and you can change the location of the vertices. You can move them up, down, and it will automatically be updated in the loft option that we've used. Okay, so this is another method where you can use in order to get some kind of organic model. Now, the new method that we're going to use today is called cross-section, along with the surface modifier. So you'll have multiple sections of the shape that you have. So how to do this? First of all, I'm going to start with very simple shapes. So I'll go to shapes and I'll select, for example, a circle. Let's go to the top view. So this is my first circle. And if you notice, whenever we are drawing a circle, we have 4 vertices. So it's very important to keep the same number of vertices. So I'll create another circle, and then maybe I'm going to create an ellipse. Okay, let's keep it here. And yeah, I think that's enough. So I will move this little bit to the top, and then this is maybe a little bit here. And I'm just going to create a copy of this on the side so we can come back to it later. Now, the important thing is to attach all these lines into one object. So I will add edit spline, and then attach the second line and the third line. Here we have an option called cross-section, where you can select the first shape and connect it to the second one, and it will give you these lines between the vertices, and then you can connect this to the third one. And this is where you have all these connections between the shapes. Okay. So this is a cross-section, and this is still a 2D line or a 2D shape. It's not a 3D object. And to turn this into a 3D object, you can use the surface modifier. So when I add this modifier, it's going to create this kind of shape out of the vertices or out of the lines that we had. And in here, in the surface modifier, you can always increase the number of steps in order to make it either more smoother, or you can make it less smooth and then add different modifiers to it. And we'll go through all of this in a minute. Now let's do this again, but this time I'm going to select the shapes a little bit differently. So let's go to this one, and I'm going to increase the radius for this. Okay, again, I'm going to add edit spline, and this time I'm going to attach these 2 new shapes, but when I go to cross-section, I start from this and go to the top one and then to the middle one. Now, as you can imagine, it's going to extrude this to the top and then towards outside. So I'm going to add surface modifier. Okay, and this is the kind of shape that I'm going to get. And you can always go to the edit spline, and you can select all the vertices and then right-click and turn them into smooth vertices. And this is going to make the shape smoother. Okay, the same thing goes here. I'm going to go to edit spline, and I will show the end result here so you can see what is happening. I'll select all the vertices, right-click, and change their type to smooth. And this is the kind of final result that we have. So how to use this method properly in order to get any organic shapes that you want to create? First of all, I'm going to draw the line. So again, as we said, you can go with closed lines or you can draw your own line. But it's very important to have the same number of vertices in all the lines in order for them to be connected together without any issues. So I will go to the front view. Maybe I'll open the grid so I can see where is my ground. And I will start drawing a line. And for this line, I'm going to make it smooth. So I'll start drawing this line. Let's say I'll go do something like this, and then this way, and then this way. So this is the kind of shape that I have. Now I'm going to go to the 3D, and then I'm going to copy this. So Shift and copy, and maybe I'll create 3-4 copies depending on what you want to achieve at the end. And then I will go to the front view again, and I will start playing around with the shape. And you can do this from any view you prefer. So let's say for this one, I want this shape to come a little bit towards inside, and then I want to keep this area this way. And then for the second or for the third shape, I'll go back to the front view. Here I want the building to, the edges to go a little bit towards outside. Okay, maybe I'll change this one again, a little bit to the top. And you can change all of this later on if you're not satisfied with the result that you get. Okay, and then for the last shape, which is this one, maybe I'm going to take these vertices again, a little bit towards the outside. I'll move this towards the inside a little bit more. And I'm just basically drawing the sections of my final shape. Now, an important thing to do, again, first of all, you need to make sure that all these shapes will have the same number of vertices. Another thing is you need to make sure that the vertices are in the correct order. So I'm just going to close the grid line to show you the numbers. So if you click here and under display on show vertex number, you can see that this is vertex 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So all the other lines, they're supposed to have the same number. So I'm going to attach the other lines. Okay, so I'll attach this one, and this one. Now, when I go to vertex, you will notice that this is vertex 5, this is 5, this is 5, and this is 5. So they all have the same numbering. They start from 1, and then they move to 5 on the other side. What if, for example, this one was 5, and you want it to be the first vertex? You can always select the first vertex and make it first. So you click here on make first, and it will become number 1. I hope that this is visible on the screen. I'll select this vertex and then click on make first, and it will change to 1. So if I want it to be the opposite way, I'll select this one, which now says 5, click on make first, and now this is the first vertex. Now that I have them all in the correct order, I can use cross-section to connect all of them. Now, when you use cross-section, if you've noticed in the first example we've worked on, when I click on the first line and then the second line, it will connect it with straight lines. And then when I go to the third, I will have a sharp angle here in the middle. So if you don't want this to happen and you don't want to change the type of vertices later on, you can go to new vertex type and turn it into smooth. So now I can select the first line, the second line, and then the third line. And as you can see, it's turning into a curve, and then the fourth line, and this is the shape that I'm going to get. So let's add surface modifier to see the final result. So this is surface modifier, and this is what I have. So now you can click on flip normals in case you're seeing any black spots. You can also increase the number of steps if you want it to be smoother, but I do prefer to keep the number of steps lower, and then we can add turbo smooth modifier to make it smoother. Okay, so this is going to add more vertices, as you can see, and even if you go with lower steps, it wouldn't affect your shape a lot. So let's keep them 3 or 4, and this is before turbo smooth. Okay, you can see this here. This is after turbo smooth. Okay, now what if I want to change something in the shape? Of course, you can always go to line. You can go to vertex and you can select, because here I don't have one vertex, I have 2 because of this connection that I have. So you will have to create this kind of selection, and then you can move it around. And if you want to see the final result at the same time, you can always click on show end result to see it. So I'll select this part, maybe I'll move it somewhere here, maybe I'll take this to this side, and again, you can play around with the shape depending on what you prefer. So maybe I'll move this a little bit here, and then maybe I'll take this one to the top, and so on. You can play around with the shape until you reach the final result that you prefer. Okay, just by drawing few lines, few sections, we can use a cross-section surface to reach this end result. And of course, you can always add any other modifiers that you need. So for example, I can add shell modifier to give some kind of thickness. If this was a wall, maybe I'll make it 200 or 300, depending on the structure that you're using. Maybe if I want to make the ground straight, I can always add slice modifier, and then I'll change this one to the y-axis, remove negative, and then I'll move this to, let's say, to 0 to make it exactly on the ground, or maybe I'll move it a little bit up just to straighten all the edges. If you need to add a cap hole to close all these, sorry, I'll go to the modifier, cap holes to close all the openings to make sure that everything is correct. What else can we do? We can always add FFD if we want to control it even more. So if you click FFD, you can select any point and then you can move it up, or you can just select, let's go to the top view. I can select these and then I can scale them. If you prefer to scale things down, you can move them up, down. So this is another modifier. If you want to use bend modifier, so all the modifiers that you have, you are able to use them. So let me just change the direction, for example, to 90 degrees, y-axis, or let's try the x-axis. Maybe I'll keep it as 0. So again, you can play around with this, or maybe in the z-axis. Oh, actually, it was what I wanted to have. So you can always play around with every modifier that you have in order to reach the kind of result that you prefer. Okay. Now, another way to use cross-section is to apply it as a modifier. So if I have, for example, let's say this kind of circle again, and then I'm going to create copies of this circle. If you have instance copies, you will not be able to attach them. So if I go here to add and edit SP-line, I'll not be able to attach it because it's an instance. So basically, you will have to make this unique to separate it from the instance copies, and then you can attach the rest. Okay, I'll just go to this SP-line. Let's say I'll make it a bit bigger, and then I'll go to this one. I'll make it a little bit smaller. So I can now add cross-section as a modifier. I don't have to use this cross-section. I can add it as a modifier, and it will automatically connect all of them. You can change it to linear, to smooth, Bezier, or Bezier corner. So you have all these options, and it will connect it in the same order you attached these objects. So if you want to select a different kind of order, then you will have to create the cross-section yourself. So I'll start from this one, for example, to this, and then maybe I'll go to the inside one or the upper one, and then this one. So you cannot do this using the cross-section modifier. You will have to do it yourself. And also, if you've attached them in a wrong kind of order, you will not be able, again, to use the cross-section modifier. You will have to do it yourself. Again, I'm going to add the surface modifier, and you can flip normals to make sure that the exterior is the face that you want. And you can add all the other modifiers that you need. Another thing that you can do, let's say I have an arc, any type of line you can work with. So in this arc, I'm going to add edit SP-line. And then if I go to SP-line, I can always click on Shift and move it up to create a copy inside the same SP-line, instead of creating a copy and then attaching it. Now, cross-section is a really diverse method. You can use it in multiple ways. So let's say I'm going to create another example. Let's see, it will be this line. And then I'm going to create another copy of this line. It will be a copy, and then I'll move this here. Maybe I'll move this to this side. And then I'm going to attach this, and I'll select these lines, and I'm going to click on Shift and copy them to the top. And then maybe I'll take these vertices, I'll move them down, Just make sure that all of these are starting with number 1. And again, I'm going to use cross section in between all these lines. So this to this to this and then to this. And as you can see, again, I'll just repeat it from this side. So starting from this one to the top, and then to the second top, and then going down, and then even going back to the first one. This is going to connect them in this kind of shape. And then when you add surface modifier, it will give you this kind of shape. And of course, you can always go back to the line. You can play around with it. So maybe I'm going to scale these down. Here. Another thing that you can do, let me just control it from this side. I'll go to R to scale, but it's not scaling because it's asking me to close the line, and I don't want to close the line. So what I can do is I can go here to change the pivot center. Instead of each vertex separately, I'll make it come all to the center here, and then I can scale it down this way. Now, again, this is something that we've already mentioned in the previous semester. So you can change the pivot point location. Either you can put it in the selection center, so it's in the center of everything that you've selected, or you can make it at the pivot center. So for each one, it will move according to which one you are scaling, and it will scale each one individually. And then this is according to the center of the grid. Okay. So I'll just take it here to the center. So it will scale them all to the center. Basically, it's moving them towards the center. There is no scaling for vertices. Okay. And you can play around with this way. You can always open the end result so you can see what you are trying to do. Okay, and of course, we don't forget about selecting all of these and turning them into smooth if you would like a smoother shape. And this is basically something that you can use, for example, to create something like this. These kind of sofas, you can apply them this way. And you can always select one of the vertices and then move it up or down, depending on what you prefer or depending on your design. Okay. Now, as I mentioned previously in this video, having lower number of steps will result in a better turbo smooth. Okay, so this is the turbo smooth. And if I go to surface, I can keep the number of steps at 4. But if you increase this to, let's say, 32, when you go to turbo smooth, it will not do a lot of difference. So always having fewer steps will give you a better smooth object at the app. Okay, so this is how you can use these cross-section with surface to create something like this. And we've talked in the beginning of the video about sweep and loft. This was the third method. Another method that we can use is basically the patch deform, which is a method that is going to take any object that you've created and it will scale it, or let's say it will make it adopt a surface that you've created. So let's see what I'm talking about exactly. Let's say I'm going to start with an arc, a line, whatever you prefer. So let's say I'll go with an arc. And then I'm going to draw this kind of arc here. And then I'm going to create 2 different copies. I'll go and apply, edit spline to one of them, attach the other 2, and then I'll go to vertex and I'll move these vertices to the top and then these vertices to the bottom, and let me change all of them to smooth so I have something like this. Now I will go to, again, cross section from the first one to the second one to the third one. Again, I forgot to change this to smooth, so I'll select all the vertices, Control A, right click and smooth. So this is kind of what I have. Maybe I'll take this as well and move it a little bit towards outside. And I will add a surface. Okay, so this is the end result. This is what we've been doing so far, nothing new. Okay. So now if I want to add some kind of pattern over this, and I have my pattern as a plane or as a box, let's say I'll go to plane, and I will create this kind of plane. And we've talked in a previous video about how to add a pattern using generate topology. So let's do that. I'll add edit poly. Okay, and then I will go to modeling, and then polygon modeling and generate topology. And then from this window, I'm going to select, let's say I'll select one of these lines, and then turn it into a hive. I'll go to polygon, select all the polygons, and then I'll go to inset by polygon, and I'm going to increase this number. And then I will delete this. So this is kind of the pattern that I have. You can use morpher, you can use whatever method you prefer. I'll just add shell to add a little bit of thickness to it. So this is the final result that I have. Now I want this shape to take this kind of shape. So I'm going to select I'll select the object first, and then I will add patch deform WSM. Okay, so we have path deform and we have patch deform. I'm going to take the patch deform, and then I will click on pick patch, and then I will select this surface that I've created. It will start taking the shape, but I have to move it to patch so I can see it in here, and then I can start stretching. So you can stretch it from all the sides until you reach the kind of size that you want. So this is the V%, and then this is the V stretch. So I can stretch it this way. Let me take this to 50. Okay, so 50, basically it will keep it in the middle. Now I'm going to scale it to fit kind of the shape that I have in the U and in V, so in both directions. And if you want to rotate the object, you can always rotate it. So in the other way around, and then again, you will have to change the scaling. But let's say this is what I want. And as you can see now, I have my shape, and you can always go to the surface itself and hide it or delete it because we don't need it anymore. And this is the result that I have. And this is a method that can help you model organic models, especially when you want to cover, for example, a facade with a pattern, or you want to create some kind of a handrail for a staircase. You can always use this kind of method. Okay, so I'll just repeat it on another shape. I'll go with line, or let's say I'll go with helix. And I'll create this kind of helix with some kind of rotation. So this is the shape that I have. And then maybe I'm going to copy this, or let's just turn it. Yeah, I can copy it this way. And then I'll change the radius for the second one, radius for the first one, the number or the height if you want to change the height, and so on. I'll add edit, SP-line, attach the second line, and then I'm going to use cross-section. You can use the cross-section modifier if you prefer. And now I have this kind of shape. I'll go to surface. This is my surface. Now you can flip the normals if you want. So this is the surface, and let me delete this patch deform and apply a new one. So patch deform WSM, pick patch, and I'll select this one, and then move it to cover the side, and then you can scale it around until you reach the kind of design that you want. The same thing happens for the top part. And whenever you go and play around with the shape, so for example, let's go to the previous one, and I'll go to edit SP-line, and go to vertex, maybe even select the vertex and move it up, or let's say I'm going to play around with FFD. Let's go with 4x4, and then I'll move these to the top, something like this, and then apply the surface. So now again, you can pick this again, or you can, as it is, just stretch it, and you can see that it will take the shape that you already have. Okay. And then you can hide the selection. And this is the new shape that I have. It was easy enough or simple enough to create using the patch deform. So these are few methods that can be helpful when you are working on organic shapes or organic modeling. You can use, of course, many other methods. You can combine the methods together in order to reach whatever model that you have in mind. So I hope that this was helpful, it was beneficial for you. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching.